for night court, dozens of employees fired by Houston Methodist Hospital for refusing to get a COVID-19 vaccine are taking their former employer to court tonight, claiming wrongful termination. While a federal judge ruled in June that the mandate was not coercion, the hospital workers argue the policy is flawed in part because it makes no exemption for so-called natural immunity, people who've had COVID and recovered, and because it violates Governor Greg Abbott's executive order prohibiting vaccine passports. Of 27,000 employees, Houston Methodist says only 153 have refused to comply with the mandate. So let's joust over the jab with tonight's Legal Eagles, data privacy specialist and attorney Sarah Gounder and criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi. Welcome back to both of you.
Hey, Shannon.
Hi,
how you doing?
All right, let's start with Exhibit A. This is from the Houston Chronicle talking about this new suit. It says it alleges the hospital's COVID vaccine mandate goes against the governor's statement that the government can't mandate vaccine passports in Texas, that breakthrough infections pose a problem with the current COVID-19 vaccines available, and that there was no exemption for people who've not been vaccinated because they previously caught COVID as a result of their employment. Bob.
Yeah, well, these things sound nice, but they're not legal, and that's where we have to put it. This is a legal segment. They've already lost in federal court on constitutional grounds, and the fact of the matter is this hospital, these employees are at-will employees, which means they can be fired for any reason so long as it's not illegal. This is not a vaccine passport. It is a hospital that's in a highly critical area where they're dealing with patients and other employees that can become infected. So you don't want to go in for your heart attack and then have somebody that's not vaccinated say, hey, good news, you survived the heart attack, bad news, you could die from COVID. So listen, the government since Jacobson versus Massachusetts, or Massachusetts versus Jacobson, I forget, 1905, even says that compulsory vaccination by the government is completely acceptable, and that law has been the law of the land. This isn't even a government institution. They're saying, look, you got to get it. We're a private entity, and you're not being forced to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have your job. That's not compulsory.
Yeah, so because of that, let me skip down to Exhibit D, because that gets to the point that you're talking about. This federal judge who the initial lawsuit ruled against them said this: the plaintiff can freely choose to accept or refuse a COVID-19 vaccine. However, if she refuses, she's simply going to need to work somewhere else. If a worker refuses an assignment, changed office, earlier start time, or other directive, he may be properly fired. Sarah.
Well, Shannon, to your point, these employees are going to argue that this vaccine is still in a trial phase, and it's also based on Governor Abbott's sentiment behind his executive order, and that is that individuals and families can voluntarily opt out of the vaccine. And again, to your point earlier, some of these folks do have antibodies as well. And so also, given the legal landscape right now, the strongest argument that these employees are going to have here is that potentially if the hospital has actually discriminated against them, or they haven't honored an exemption based on religion or the ADA, that's going to be their strongest argument here.
Okay, so a little bit more from the complaint in Exhibit C says this: many other hospital systems don't have the vaccine mandate. Are these hospital systems failing to, quote, put their patients first? The answer is no, because there is no failure. If this were truly about putting patients first, every single hospital system, medical provider, facility, clinic, and office would have banded together to mandate vaccines. That's from their complaint. Bob?
Yeah, first of all, the Methodist Church is giving religious exemptions. I just want to make sure that that's clear, and for people that have ADA problems. With respect to what other hospitals do, that's not the point. This is America. Businesses can decide to do what they deem to be fit. But I'll tell you one thing, for those hospitals that are not following along with what the Methodist hospital is doing, they're now subjecting themselves to lawsuits if patients and other employees get sick, especially with breakthrough infections, saying they should have had the vaccine mandate in place. They scientifically knew that it would be a wise thing. They didn't do it, and patients and other employees got sick. So businesses are between a rock and a hard place to make these decisions, and that's why they're protected in the decision they make one way or the other.
Let me bring Sarah in for a quick final argument.
Again, the employees are going to argue, likely, if there is a strong argument here, that this could be based on ADA reasons under the exemption or for religion. And so we'll just have to see how this ends up in the court.
Yeah, we will track it, and we thank you both for weighing in. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.